Okay, welcome to another Team CGC 9.8 video. So I wanted to share with you guys a bit of an observation I've had just within the comic book sort of nerd community. And I've actually acted upon this observation by purchasing a couple books. So the thing I've been noticing is just a lot of hate in general for Star Wars. And you'd think, such an iconic brand, how could it be so hated at this time? And I wouldn't say it's like a universal thing, but there seems to be, some discontent among the community with Star Wars right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with Disney purchased Star Wars about 4 or 5 years ago. And obviously they've had, a couple movies, 3 or 4 movies now released. And, a lot of the criticisms are that they're changing the story to sort of maybe appease some of these like political beliefs or, like personally I think when they sort of took out the midichlorians thing and just said, oh, anybody can be a Jedi. That was a little bit weird because growing up I really thought the midichlorian idea was kind of cool and, but now like from a life lesson perspective, yes. Your dreams can come true, anyone's dreams can come true as long as you work hard and this and that. But, I think people don't want to be sort of spoon-fed that while watching Star Wars. They'd rather just, have some of the classic elements of the story still intact. But, Disney sort of have kind of went away with that. And they've changed the story quite a bit, which is leading to a lot of I wouldn't say hate, but just some criticism within the community about the direction that Disney is taking Star Wars. Now, Star Wars, it's such an iconic brand. Like, cannot stress that enough how iconic it is. So I think in the long term, all of this will kind of just be some noise. And, it might take a couple years, maybe a couple more movies, but I think Disney will find sort of a sweet spot. And now about 4 or 5 years ago, Disney purchased Star Wars. About 8 to 10 years ago now, they purchased Marvel Entertainment, and obviously there's just a Marvel movie every other month now. So I assume that that's basically going to happen with Star Wars, continuing here in the next 5 to 10 years. So the hate for Star Wars, I think, is making some of the comic books quite affordable. I've read sort of some overstreet price guides from like 3-4 years ago when The Force Awakens came out, and CGC 9.8 Star Wars books were so hot then, and I think now they've really cooled down. So I've sort of acted on this, and recently I purchased a Star Wars #1. This is the 30-cent variant. Obviously there's the 35-cent one, which is like crazy expensive. I can't afford that, so I was lucky enough about a month or so ago to come across an auction for a really nice Star Wars #1, really nice centering as well. A lot of these you see they got kind of that white bar along the line because it's not perfectly centered or it's just out of whack a bit, even though if it's still in really good shape. But it's quite rare to see a 9.8 white pages, perfectly centered like this. So pretty lucky to come across this. And I think right now is a really good time to buy Star Wars comic books for investment purposes because, for the same reason why when you see a trailer of a brand new movie, you don't want to go on eBay and buy the comic book of that specific movie for whatever it is. Right now Star Wars is a bit on the low, kind of hated, and that, there's not really like a new Star Wars movie coming out right now, although there will be movies coming out in the future, and there's like Star Wars Land is opening up very soon as well. So there's possibly some catalysts coming up the road, but I would say right now that there's kind of a lot of hate and criticism going on around Star Wars right now, which is making the comics pretty affordable. So this one, Star Wars #1, bought it on auction about a month ago. It was $950 US for CGC 9.8 white pages. Not very cheap, but For obviously the first Star Wars in comic books, I think over time it's going to do really well. I have a feeling. Just again, how iconic Star Wars is. This is the first appearance of Star Wars in comics. You know, to get this under $1,000 for 9.8 white pages, I thought was a pretty good buy. A really good buy, hopefully. So Star Wars #1. There's a couple other keys throughout Star Wars as well that I think you can certainly buy. If you can't find a Star Wars 1, also got the Star Wars 42, 9.8 white pages as well. This one's in the older case, but still in really good shape. Yeah, the pages are really white and crisp, super flat, decent centering on it as well. But these are kind of the two main key issues from the Star Wars range. This is one being first Boba Fett, Star Wars 42, and then you got Star Wars 1 as well. But yeah, right now, in general, there just isn't much love or euphoria at all for Star Wars. And in fact, I think it's the opposite. A lot of criticism, a lot of people being really critical of the series, which again, I think is making the books affordable, and that's sort of the way you want to go when you're investing in comics. You don't want to necessarily buy the hottest thing, or the thing that just had the trailer come out, or you know, the thing where they just announced that they're going to release a movie and now all the books are hot. You want to avoid that. And whenever you can pick up an iconic brand at an affordable price, or you know, possibly a cheaper price than you would normally have to pay for it, I think you know, it's something that you can feel good about buying. So Star Wars 42, first Boba Fett. I picked this up last year. It was $500 Canadian, which I think is a fair price. I didn't think I got a great deal, but I think it was a fair price. This is the direct edition, so the newsstands, I think, you know, they're about maybe $100 a premium to this. But you know, in the old case for $500 Canadian, which you know, you're talking about $375 US, I think that's a pretty good buy. So you know, if you could certainly find, given that there is a lot of criticism for Star Wars, if you can find that for this price or even cheaper, I think Star Wars 42 is a really good buy right now. And obviously Star Wars 1, which is the other big key of that era. And I mean, any Star Wars, I would personally stick with the keys if you are investing. But it's a good sort of microcosm of what you want to try to position yourself when you're investing in comics to do, which is, you know, buy the comics where, you know, maybe there isn't a movie out right now of the brand, and maybe, you know, the brand is sort of not being talked about right now, but you know, looking maybe a year or two down the line, you could see that there could be a couple catalysts. So that's kind of where I see Star Wars right now. Whereas, you know, something that's really hot right now, maybe like, you know, some Venom and Carnage issues, or Thanos issues, or some Avengers type issues, you know, maybe you'd want to avoid those right now. And look at, you know, personally, I think Star Wars and Batman right now are quite affordable, and there's not a lot of like headlines making the issues hot. But you know, with these iconic brands, sometime down the line, there's going to be a new movie, good headlines, and the issues will probably get hot again. And that's kind of where you want to position yourself when you're investing in comics, because you don't really want to follow the hot crowd. You want to sort of try to position yourself before the books get hot, which is kind of hard in practice, but when you see such an iconic brand like Star Wars, which I love, and yes, maybe the criticism is warranted, but I think over the long term they're going to come through it, and I think you're getting a good price for Star Wars keys at this point. So buy Star Wars comics, Batman comics as well. I'll probably be doing a video on that, on Batman comics in the upcoming days and weeks. But hopefully you're getting some good tips, and can't wait to share some of the rest of my collection with you guys. But right now, yeah, buy Star Wars, buy Batman, And keep watching, keep subscribing to the channel. I'll have more videos coming up very soon, so I'll see you soon.